YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. And in today's video, we're going to take a look at the teams that are locks or very close to being locks to improve their record from 2019 to 2020. I think a lot of people take a look at who each team gained in the offseason and just decide those are the most improved teams, but sometimes it doesn't translate to the actual field and to the record, which is most important here. So I'll take a look at the teams, in my opinion, are improving the most record-wise this season. Before we get started, 60K is the subscriber goal by week 1 of the NFL. Please help us get there. Full NFL coverage, predictions, rankings like this, and then we got full coverage in-season. Weekly predictions are my favorite videos on this channel. Follow that Twitter for updates and breaking news around the NFL, and then check out our podcast there. Link in the description, the comments for anything that you may need. So let's start with the 6 teams that kind of just missed the lock cut. They're very close to being locks, and I have 4 teams that are locks to improve their record in 2020. So close to a lock to improve record, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So this is a borderline one because, they were 8-8 last year, and they had some terrible quarterback play, absolutely terrible, and they still were very close to the playoffs. So they're still a pretty decent team when that, more than that, with their defense mainly. Now they get Big Ben back, so you automatically think they got him. They're better than last year, and that's the truth. But let's see how it plays out. Sometimes just because a team is better on paper or somebody's coming back doesn't mean their record will necessarily be better, but you expect it to be here. So they won 8 games without Big Ben last year. Potentially could have elite defense in football. They're arguably an elite defense last year. And then a reason maybe they won't. They do have a tough schedule and division there. There's some games you expect them to win on there, but there's a lot of games that could go either way. Looking at their schedule, it's not ridiculously hard or anything, but it's tough. And I don't know, Big Ben doesn't have, you can't call him injury prone, but we all probably worry a little bit that this can come back. So all it would take was, hopefully not, but for that to happen again, and we're looking at maybe a maximum of 8 wins. So that's why I can't call them a lock, because 8 wins is kind of a, even though it's not a great record, it's kind of a big number. It's tough for any team to almost get back there sometimes. So that's why it's kind of a just missed the lock category, but they are mentioned in this video because you almost expect them to be, better in terms of the record in 2020. Next up, we got the Dallas Cowboys, who are also 8-8. This one is borderline. I almost called it a lock here. I thought they improved their coaching, mainly their play calling with Mike McCarthy. Very questionable play calling under Jason Garrett not just last year, but the past. And we always, they always felt underwhelming, underperforming every year based on their talent. I think their talent on their team says easily over 8 wins. So that kind of goes together. Get the play calling right, and the talent will show a little better. Potentially have a high-powered offense. It didn't show every single week last year, but there was a lot of time, a lot of games that they felt like a high-powered offense. They were so impressive. You got Dak Prescott, you got Zeke. Even Tony Pollard's a weapon as a backup running back, but a rotation guy as well. Could also play receiver. But you look at the receiver unit, it is very good. They even had CeeDee Lamb, my number 1 receiver in the class, to that. And they still have a good offensive line. So that could be a high-powered offense, which is the name of the game in today's NFL. Why they won't? Maybe what was enough to scare me away of calling them a lock. Because remember, you got to realize that me calling somebody a lock to improve the record, it's a little bold no matter who it is. So I couldn't quite do it with the Cowboys because, first-year head coaches never really go, to plan, it feels like. Most of the time they don't go to plan. That doesn't mean they didn't improve. Even if they end up worse, I still think they improved their coaching. There's a little bit of an adjustment period. It's a new playbook for not only the quarterback, the most important part to learn, but everybody to learn there. So there is a little bit of an adjustment period for that. But maybe it'll be the opposite. The Cowboys usually start strong and then start to kind of blow it. Maybe it'll be the opposite, if anything, there, or maybe they can be consistent throughout the whole year. Worried about the pass rush a little bit, because it's pretty much DeMarcus Lawrence out there. They don't have Robert Quinn anymore. Maybe somebody will step up. But there's nothing coming from the interior really either. Nothing much. I think they'll be able to stop the run okay from the interior, but I don't know if there's enough. They're going to have to. I would love for them to use Jalen Smith, in a lot more blitz packages because he has potential I mean, I think he actually could play an edge rush position, but obviously he's better at linebacker. That's how talented I think he is. So in a pass rush is one of the most important things in football. And the defense, because kind of mixed in with that, could be a little bit below average. There's the linebacker unit's looking pretty good, obviously, if Van Der Esch is healthy. I mean, they have DeMarcus Lawrence. I love the Trevon Diggs pick, but you can't expect a whole bunch from there right away. They got other players that can play, so I'm not trying to say they're bad or they have players that just they aren't good starting. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's just, is there enough there? Is there enough juice? And eight wins, again, like the Steelers, it's not that easy to get 8 wins. So for me to say a lock would be a little much because they can do about the same thing. I think their roster, their talent says definitely better than 8, but we'll see. It's cutting it kind of close. The Broncos are next here. I think close to a lock here with kind of a set QB. I don't mean that he's guaranteed to be their franchise quarterback or he's proven or anything. I don't want anybody to take it the wrong way. I believe in Drew Lock, but look at it. Last year was a mess. This guy starting this, Brandon Allen's in at one point. It's kind of a mess. And now it's kind of just set. Drew Lock's the guy. Everyone knows that he's going to play. He's going to improve. I like Lock for the future. I think now they have playmakers pretty much everywhere. I mean, you look at in the offense, you look at the running back duo now. They had Phillip Lindsay. They add Melvin Gordon. The receiver unit was pretty much just Courtland Sutton. And now they add some playmakers, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler. And you have Noah Fant already. They add Albert O, who's familiar with Drew Lock. That's a lot of. It starts to add up. That's a lot of playmakers there for the young quarterbacks. So that's fantastic. And they have playmakers on defense too. I mean, I consider a guy like Justin Simmons a playmaker. I consider a lot of those guys, playmakers. Even A.J. Johnson at the linebacker position, I consider a playmaker. So I mean, they got electrifying players everywhere. We know their pass rush should be phenomenal off the edge there with Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. So they got some talent. And I think they can potentially have an elite defense. Whether you want to, if you're predicting them not to have an elite defense, you know what I mean by if the season ends this year and they're actually an elite defense, we wouldn't really be that surprised because they can be because some of those players I named. Maybe why they won't improve this record. Just this morning, actually, Ja'Wuan James, the news came out that he's opting out, and that's a tough blow. They barely had him last year, so you could say, well, they're kind of used to it, the same thing as last year, but that was the main reason they struggled last year because James got that big contract. Why? Because he was one of the best right tackles in football, and he's their best offensive lineman. They need him in there. I think they did improve their interior. They improved their interior offense line. I think that'll be better this year, but man, the tackle position is pretty rough. I was expecting the unit as a unit to improve big time this year, really, mainly because Ja'Wuan James wasn't going to get back. So that's pretty tough, and the offensive line can definitely hold them back, especially when a young quarterback's trying to grow, and that kind of goes into, they got Drew Lock. They got 2 rookie receivers. They have a second-year tight end, a rookie tight end, a first-year running back in Melvin Gordon. So that there could be an adjustment period. But you look at the Broncos and their additions, they definitely improved. Not even their additions, but just knowing that Drew Lock's the guy and he's going to improve, and some of the other guys, Courtland Sutton's going to continue to improve. Another year under Vic Fangio. This is a much improved roster, for sure going into this year. And I think they'll be better than 7 wins. I was leaning towards the 10-win range, but the Ja'Wuan James news takes a hit. I think they'll be better than 7 wins, but it's going to be a close call because even if you're one of those Broncos believers like me. You also could see that the offense line could really just hold them back, and you also can see a potential. It's possible to win like 6 or 7 games again. It's possible. So, I can't make them a lock. I can't make them a lock right now. I wonder if I would have if James didn't get hurt or it didn't opt out. Excuse me. I think I probably would have because I was leaning towards that 10 wins, and you think bottom line would probably around that 8, which is cutting it close, but it's a tough one. Maybe a little bold here, but I'm not calling it an exact lock, just close. It would be the Washington football team here. They were 3-13 last year. So one thing is why they will only need to win 4 games. I guess easier said than done, but 4 games isn't a lot there. Isn't a lot. But somebody's got to be that team that only wins 3 or less games, or less than 4 games. Somebody's going to be that team. Even if you think, I don't think there's any downright terrible teams in the NFL, but somebody's going to do it. It's just going to happen. But this defense could be elite It could be, mainly because the pass rush. I talked about how important pass rush is and how much of a game changer it is. And some teams do it with the edge rush. Some teams do it with the interior. Rare amount of teams do it with both. With the total of the full front seven, the Washington football team here will do it with their entire front seven, and that's scary. That alone will win them games. It's going to make their secondary better, which they got some playmakers there. It's not the best secondary though, but it's going to make them better. They have not only do they have a crazy starting front seven, a crazy front. They have a pretty good rotation in there as well, some good depth. So I think they're going to constantly be getting after the quarterback, and that's game-changing. You're slowing the quarterback down. You're slowing the offense down. You're creating turnovers for your secondary. You're getting your offense the ball in better situations. That's what I expect from this team. They improved their coaching for sure. It was a mess last year. Get Ron Rivera with his experience in there. That's fantastic. And then why they won't, even though I definitely think they improved their coaching. I talked about it with the Cowboys too. First-year head coach. Sometimes it's always tough. Let's just say they win 0 games or less than 3, we'll say. I still think they improve coaching. It's just that first year, adjustment period. It takes some time, especially the lack of preparation perhaps. It's possible. But I would, even if they won 0 games, I would still, I wouldn't be super confident for the future, but I would be confident that they still improve their coaching. Haskins' growing pains could still occur. For sure. I believe in Haskins. It's going to take some time. He didn't get a whole bunch of experience last year. I wish it was a little more. He started to get better, as the year went on, for sure. I think more of the turnovers came right when he was thrown into a terrible situation, so I'm not really too worried about that. But kind of going in, they have a little bit of a weaker offensive line because they lost some guys, including Trent Williams in the receiver unit, even though I like Terry McLaurin. They got some young guys that can step up, but it's one of the weaker, maybe the weakest in the NFL, and that kind of goes into Haskins. He's got a tough task ahead of him. So for those reasons, they could be around a 2, and like I said, somebody's got to do it. I don't think there's any... I consider this team pretty solid mainly because of the defense and the coaching, but it's possible that, some teams got to do it. Some teams got to be the team that just blows it this year and just can't win games. So I couldn't call it a lock, but pretty close. The Bills are next, very close to a lock, and the main reason I can't put it in a lock because 10 wins is a lot. It's pretty damn bold of me if I said they're guaranteed to win over 10 games. That's pretty bold. I was close to doing it, though. Why they will improve? I don't know if there's a more balanced team. I'm sure we can debate it. There's some other teams that are balanced. So balanced, though. Really, I think they can get better in some spots, but I don't consider anything a giant hole for this team at all, which is great. And I think they're improving. They're still figuring. I talk about it all the time. Beginning of last year, they were unleashing Josh Allen. He was turning the ball over. The defense had to pick up the slack, and then they kind of switched it to, all right, we don't want to turn the ball over. Just kind of a very conservative offense. And we'll just let our defense make it a little easier on our defense. So they're not constantly on the field, not with the turnovers. But we'll let our defense win games. And then as the season got closer to the end there, it turned into kind of that they found that right consistency and balance in between the two, unleashing Josh Allen completely and getting conservative, relying on the defense. They found kind of that middle ground there, and I love to see that. So they just found their identity at the end of last season. That's great going for this season. Now they kind of know. They add Stephon Diggs. A lot of the young guys are getting better as it is. So they kind of just get better by default there, in my opinion. And I think they can potentially have maybe the best defense in football, really. I think they could get better at the actual edge rush position, even though they have some guys that can play. Other than that, though, really, really good defense. Very good defense. They could be elite. They could be the best in football. And I think they're built, and if you look at the rest of the AFC East, you could see a 6-0 record from the East alone. And, that only leaves 5 more games to beat last year, 5 more wins. Easier said than done again, but that makes it a lot, makes us feel a little better, if them being in the East, I suppose. Why they won't, they don't, other than outside the East, they do have some tough non-divisional games. Tougher schedule than what we're used to with the Bills. It's not like super tough or anything. They do play in the East, so overall it's not a hard schedule. And Josh Allen's inconsistency, which I thought he started to get more consistent at the end of the year. But it wouldn't surprise me. I'm a believer in the Bills for sure. I'm a believer in Josh Allen's future. But it wouldn't surprise me, if there's games that he struggled. He turned the ball over, couldn't really hit the throws he should hit. It could pop up still, and it shouldn't really surprise any of us, even though I believe in him. But very close to being a lock there. And then one more very close to a lock before I get in the top 4 locks, and I have them in order. We're going to go with the Browns here, and I couldn't call them a lock, but they were very close. 6-10 last year. And why they will improve, maybe the reasons if they did improve the record. They improved their weakest link, kind of what was holding them back most, even though there was multiple things. But the offensive line, I don't expect it. There's some people that really think they improved it big time. They improved it for sure, but I don't think it's going to be this crazy good offensive line, but it's definitely better. I think it fits what they're trying to do, mainly with the running game or how they use the backs. There's playmakers everywhere. The talent on this team, says much better than 6 wins. We all know that. You look at the receiver duo, you look at the running back duo, the tight ends. You have a top-tier talent, Myles Garrett, players like that. So the playmakers are there. And they potentially could have the best, elite running game, and that's actually including the running backs in the passing game as well. But that group, it could be the best in football, which is, even though it's not really much of a running game today, that stuff opens up, the rest of the game. The rest of the game, include the passing game, Baker Mayfield, that will kind of come. It will come easier. So, a little bit of a disastrous season last year. You really don't expect that to happen. It's the Browns, but you don't expect it to happen again. Why they won't? First-year head coach, yeah, it's a bit of a system change. With Stefanski there, it's a little bit different than Baker, especially because I still view Baker as a prospect. Guys, when they're young, I still view them that way. It's going to be a lot different than what he did in Oklahoma. It's a ton different. It's going to be a lot of play action, a lot of running the ball, a lot of using the running backs, which it could be simplified for him, though. So it might not be, really tough to figure out. But it's a big change, though. It's still a big change. And the first-year head coach, first-year play caller, I talked about with some other teams, there's an adjustment period. Stefanski, the only thing I didn't like was the conservative play calling from him last year. I love the playbook. I definitely like the playbook a lot. He just got really conservative, in those situations where it's second and more than 10, it's just run the ball. If it's, third and, in a spot where, we're probably not going to get it passing, but we could get it passing, we're just going to run the ball and punt the ball. I hate that stuff. I absolutely hate that. Sometimes afraid to take shots. Early in the year it wasn't like that. Later in the year, but that was with a different team with the Vikings. So maybe it's a little different here with Cleveland. I'm just a little worried about that because I've seen it. And the defense could struggle. Tackling was a major issue. That's kind of where my head's at. Tackling was a major issue last year, especially if the ball got to the secondary level. It was pretty bad. So that's fundamental stuff. You got to be able to tackle to win games. And I feel like I think they'll have enough pressure. With Myles Garrett, Sheldon Richardson gets a good amount of pressure on the inside. I just feel like those guys might carry a little bit. Some other guys got to step up. They got a little thinner at the linebacker position. So the defense is definitely below average. It could struggle a little bit. Banking on the young guys like Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams to step up a bit there, which I think they can. So we'll see if the Browns can do it. Now we're on the top 4 locks. These teams are locks. I'm going to guarantee it. It's pretty bold to say that about anybody, but I'm going to guarantee them to improve their record. Number 4, I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals. Maybe a little easy one because they only had 2 wins last year, but they still have a lot of work to do. So it's possible, like I said when I was talking about the Washington team over there, that even though we don't think there's any downright terrible teams, somebody's going to do it. Somebody's going to have a record like this. It's got to happen. It's got to happen. It's just what happens. So it could be them, but I think they improved at QB. Joe Burrow is the best prospect I've scouted this far, and I think he can be a plug-and-play guy. I look at their system they got there, and Zach Taylor and where he came from. And I had the comparison of Burrow to a better version of Jared Goff, and that's the system they want to run there. Obviously, with Taylor coming from the Rams, and I think I think he's a perfect fit there with that coaching staff. With that system, and I just feel like it's a perfect fit. And I think Burrow's going to ball out this year, and even as a rookie. I don't think he's going to do anything crazy, but as a rookie with a Bengals team that we don't expect to be that crazy, I think he's going to be more than impressive, better than most people expect. They have young and improving playmakers. They add T. Higgins to the mix. They have Tyler Boyd. A.J. Green's a playmaker. He's not young, though, but they got those guys everywhere. Some young guy, Drew Sample at tight end. Joe Mixon, of course. They got a pretty good, they have Travion Williams, who I like a lot, too. Maybe we'll see more of him this year, but they got some playmakers around there. And even on the defense, Jesse Bates, the playmaker back there, some of those guys. They improved that defense. They improved it by default from the guys they drafted a couple years ago, last year. And they only need to win 3 games for me to be right here. So hopefully they'll let me down. If they somehow don't, I think it'll be because the offense line's just that weak and Burrow just couldn't play his game because of how weak it is. Because LSU offense line helped him out a bit, but I do think his talent definitely showed regardless of the offensive line. But that could be a possibility. And the defense can still struggle. They're heading in the right direction for sure. I don't think they don't really have a crazy pass rush, edge rush, I should say. It could struggle. They were another team that, much like the Browns, once the ball got to the secondary level, they were horrendous at tackling. But I think they improved that. I definitely think they improved that. They had Von Bell, and they had Trey Waynes, who I actually think was one of the better tackling corners of football the last several years. Consistent tackler, likes to come up and hit. So I think they improved that, actually. So that's a good sign. So they're number 4. I'm calling it a lock for them to be better than 2 wins. Number 3 is going to be the Arizona Cardinals here. They went 5-10-1. Remember, they tied the Lions last year. So can they beat that? Can they beat 5 wins? We'll call it. I think they should be a lock to do so. I really do. I think they potentially could have a high-powered offense. Almost air raid, spread offense with how many receivers out there. What the Cliff Kingsbury offense with Kyler Murray running the show, perfect fit there with all those receivers. DeAndre Hopkins leading the way. And it feels like, nothing guaranteed, it feels like they got their running back there with Kenyon Drake. So that is fantastic. They potentially could be a hard offense to stop. A lot of a very fast, a lot of scoring with this offense, and it's a tough one to game plan. That's the main factor there. I can almost guarantee that a guy like Kyler Murray will improve in year 2, so his game will improve. Therefore, then the team improves. They improved the defense. They draft Isaiah Simmons. They add some Campbell. They add Kennard, they add Jordan Phillips, a number of guys they add back there. Patrick Peterson's there full time, maybe now because he's seen him miss some games. Hopefully he's there. I think they have an easy schedule. I think they may have the easiest schedule in football, so that definitely helps to get some more wins than just 5. If they somehow don't improve the record, it's because the offensive line might be too weak. It's not really a weak offensive line. I'm not calling it a weak offensive line, but it can be a weak offensive line. It could be better than it was last year, too. More time with some of these guys aren't really used to this type of system, so more time under that. That might be a reason they didn't really change it a whole bunch, or really at all, because the guys were still adjusting and they're confident with them now that they kind of got their feet wet there. But if they struggled, that could be a reason that's realistic. And there's a lot of new faces, a lot of, adding DeAndre Hopkins, and then looking at the defense. There's new guys everywhere on the defense, so sometimes adding that many new guys, it's great. It's great, but not right away. There's an adjustment period. So, but I'm, as you can tell, I'm almost, I'm locked in that the Cardinals will be better than 5-win team this year. Number 2 is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 7-9 last year. I think they're a much improved team with the obvious addition of Tom Brady. You see him listed on there as well. I think having Tom Brady, his leadership, and winners are winners. And he's a maybe the best example of that. Even though he's switching teams here, it's also Bruce Arians' second year, so they had the adjustment period last year. Now the second year here. I think they're just overall, looking at the defense, the young studs they brought in over the years, they're starting to improve every step of the way. They just switched their scheme last year. So in multiple different ways, I think they're a much improved team. I think the additions, but the guys kind of just improving as time goes on there. Including the coach. A potential elite offense with Tom Brady, with that receiver unit, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski, their tight end unit. They don't have a standout running back, but they have a number of guys that could potentially play under Tom Brady. I think the offensive line improves too. It's a potential elite offense. Way less turnovers. Last year they were in games. We felt like they were going to win this game. They had this game. They were in it. And a turnover kind of cost them. Or if you look back, and if they didn't turn the ball over here, they didn't turn the ball over this many times, they would have won. They would have made the playoffs. And they're going to cut down on that a bunch. So that is big time there. And that kind of includes Tom Brady. If somehow they don't improve the 7 wins, yeah, there's a lot of changes, and sometimes there's an adjustment period. I think it's a different conversation when we're talking about Tom Brady, because usually first-year quarterbacks on a team, it's tough, really no matter who they are. But I think we'll see. We'll see how great Tom Brady is, but I'm confident in him. In the run, even though I said they had a number of running backs that can play, it's teams really won't fear the running game, and that could put a lot of pressure the pass blocking, the actual passer and Tom Brady, the receivers. It could be tougher for them with the defense's full game plan on that. The running backs got to step up. Number one, though, is going to be the Detroit Lions. And it's a little bold of me putting them at the top, I suppose, because, Stafford, because the injuries there at Stafford, we'll talk about in a little bit. But they went 3-12-1. They tied the Cardinals, both teams making the list here. Stafford is back. They went 0-8 without Matthew Stafford, and they were looking like a team that can potentially squeeze in the playoffs, predicting the future kind of because that was early with Matt Stafford because he was playing at a very high level. He got his rest, which at that point, for him, I don't really – sometimes it could be rust. You miss that much time. I don't really see that with Stafford. He got his rest. It was needed, I thought, because he kind of been getting beat up the last couple of years. You see him playing through injuries. So I think that's kind of a good thing. I think it's a very balanced team. It's not like Bills level of balance or some of those teams at the top, but they're pretty balanced. There's really nothing. There's no spot. There's a lot of spots where they definitely can get better, but there's no spot that's like, wow, they're weak there. I don't really say that about any units for their team. I think they improved, too. I mean, adding Jamie Collins, even though that's not a big time player, I think it improves. I think it improves them, in different ways because he provides that pass rush. Trey Flowers, I think, improves them, even though he was on their team last year. I think he gets better this year. Some young guys stepping up. I think it's better having, almost I'm starting to grow on the idea of having the two corners instead of the one, basically. So it's Darius Slay or Jeff Okudah and Desmond Trufant. I'd rather have the two than the one, even though Darius Slay is, more proven and much better. And he was in and out of games too and missed games. So I think they're improved here. They had DeAndre Swift as well, so I definitely think they're improved. Offensive playmakers, you look at the receiver duo, pretty good one there. Kenny Golladay is getting better every step of the way. They have Marvin Jones. They have T.J. Hawkinson, who I like a lot to keep on improving, and now they have the running back duo with DeAndre Swift, Kerryon Johnson. So they got the playmakers there. Only need 4 wins for me to be right here, so that 4 wins, not that much. If they somehow don't, it's because, maybe Stafford, if we're sitting here and they have 3 or less wins at the end of the year, it's probably, Stafford was probably hurt or something. Even the years prior, he kind of was playing through the injury, and that kind of, he had lower back injuries or spasms, whatever it is, and you could see he wasn't 100%. And, that kind of affected them. So that kind of plays a part there. And, even when they were healthy, I felt like they got inconsistent at times. Like you see this solid Lions team that can win the NFC North or make the playoffs at times, and all of a sudden it just goes away. So that seems like a Lions thing. It seems like there's everything, team like the Browns are kind of, just feels like they're cursing in a certain way, and it just feels like the Lions are like kind of a similar way here. But hopefully they can get over that. This team, looking at Stafford coming back and having that rest, this team is much better than 3 wins. The NFC North is pretty tough. I don't think there's a dominant team in the NFC North for this year. I just think there's any 4 of those teams can win playoff games, including the Lions. But I guess it's somewhat of a tough division for them because they got to play. I guess it's not. I don't think they will, but it's not shocking if they don't win a division game. But I really think they should win a few at least. But basically, I'm kind of repeating myself here. But Stafford coming back with the rest and just the talent on the team. It's not crazy talented, but the talent on the team and since they don't have giant gaps or holes, they're much better than a 3-win team. They're much better, in my opinion. So that's why I went with them 1. You guys can give me your thoughts in the comments. Not everyone will have 10. I only had 4 locks. I'm not going to force a 5th in there because it's just what I believe. So if you guys want to comment, if it's 1, 2, 7, 18, doesn't matter. I would love to see in the comments your locks, your close locks. And please smash that like button. Check out both of our channels. Subscribe, turn notifications on. All that would be much appreciated. Cannot wait for the NFL season to start. Hopefully you join us for that. It's going to do it, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.